Do you remember being 7 years old and using blue and yellow Play-Doh to make the most stunning landmark known to mankind? A building so structurally sound, safe and functional that your parents simply had to sing their praises and insisted you become a civil engineer. But surely the design and construction of real-world infrastructure is vastly different from clay creations, right? Perhaps not as different as you might think. Dr. Mohammed Meddah has found a way to mold clay into buildings, and the method is environmentally friendly, sustainable, and economically viable. It sounds too good to be true, but you can trust Dr. Mohammed, and not only because he's an associate professor of civil engineering at Sultan Qaboos University in Oman, but also because he happens to be in the top 2% of the most cited researchers worldwide in the field of civil engineering.
My research actually is focusing mainly on sustainable building materials. We focus more on concrete and cement technology. But as you know, with the sustainable development and the environmental impact of building materials, so we try to develop and enhance the performance of building materials to reduce the environmental impact. So mostly we are focusing on using different waste materials and industrial byproduct in concrete and cement to not only to enhance the properties of the building material, but also to reduce the environmental charges. The most recent research we are working on, and that is linked to the National Research Award, is developing cementitious materials from local raw materials clay, by, of course, following engineered processing to develop local cementitious materials, pozzolanical cementitious materials.
Lots to unpack here, so let's break it down for the business majors. The buildings and construction industry is by far the largest emitter of greenhouse gases, accounting for a whopping 37% of global emissions. It's no wonder that Dr. Mohammed is trying to find ways to mitigate the environmental impact through recycling waste materials. Although recycling is plenty useful even outside of the construction industry, the piece of research we're examining today actually utilizes an altogether different strategy for sustainability, which is the use of indigenous materials for building. Remember the pozzolanic clay Dr. Mohammed was referring to? That's the scientific term for sarooj.
Well, sarooj is a local term used to describe an earthen building material that is mainly prepared in traditional way. It's not only in Oman, even in neighboring countries like Iran, India, they call it surhi. It's quite very similar. The base is raw material is clay. Why we are interested specifically to this material? First of all, because it is a local material, available material, and lower cost than cement and other building materials. It is more sustainable because availability and cost, and it is contributing to, of course, to enhancing the performance of the resulting mortar or concrete, while, of course, reducing the environmental impact of the construction industry overall.
Sarooj is not just a clayey soil, however. It's also cemented in Oman's culture and heritage. For centuries, sarooj was used in the construction of forts, castles, houses, and Oman's traditional irrigation system, the iflaj. For example, the magnificent Behla fort with its towers and turrets was, in the 12th century, plastered with a mixture of clay, lime, egg whites, and palm trees. This traditional method of construction was renowned for its texture and color. But sarooj clay, when used as a standalone building material, has its shortcomings, which is why it's no longer used in construction.
The traditional way of preparing sarooj is based on there is no control on the physical properties of the raw material. There is no control on the burning process. The calcination process is done on open air using dried palm trunks and burned at open air without control of the temperature or the duration of calcination.
So, if the process of turning sarooj clay into a viable building material is so arduous and environmentally harmful, Then why did Dr. Mohammed claim that his research findings regarding Sarooj clay could be a sustainable alternative for the construction industry? Well, Dr. Mohammed favors engineered Sarooj over traditional Sarooj.
Engineered Sarooj is a way of controlling all the process from the selection of the raw material used, the clay, to the physical and chemical properties of the raw material. And then it comes the process of grinding the clay, the raw material, into very fine particles, microparticles, usually less than 75 micro. And then it comes the process of calcination to activate the material, because other raw clay is not reactive material because it is in crystalline form. So through calcination or burning a process, same way as they do it in traditional way, but in engineered one we do it in the lab, of course, using electric furnace. And then the material is replacing cement or used alone at very optimized proportions, and the resulting, of course, performance is much higher than the traditional Sarooj.
When Sarooj clay is engineered, it becomes a lot more usable for construction purposes. Engineered Sarooj is mixed with cement to produce a cheaper and more environmentally friendly solution to the construction conundrum. Sounds like a win-win situation if you ask me. But Dr. Mohammed's research hasn't been implemented just yet. Doing so would require academics and industry professionals to join forces and produce something feasible. Will Sarooj clay make a reappearance in the modern-day architecture of Oman? I suppose that remains to be seen.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you for Oman FM for having me through this kind of discussion and interviews. We can, of course, spread more our research and disseminate our research results in the community.
This was Sarah Lawati on 90.4 Oman FM.